In the 4th year of my crush on Daisy, we slept together. She was rich, beautiful, and the perfect girlfriend. Except she didn't do marriage. Everyone knew she was waiting for her first love to come back. So the day he returned, I knew my cue and got out of the picture. We saw each other again at a dinner with some clients. I was being cornered by a business partner, getting blackout drunk, but I refused to give in and called Daisy like they wanted. Amid the boisterous jeers, Daisy glided through the crowd. In the ensuing silence, her voice was husky and tinged with weary helplessness. "You won't even call me? Are you really that hurt?" My face was flushed and my ears were hot from all the liquor they were forcing on me. The client was still egging me on. "Just give Daisy a call, and you won't have to drink another drop." I stared at the dozen or so glasses on the table, then silently picked one up, and another and another. Someone joked, "Just what you'd expect from Daisy's top assistant. The man can hold his liquor," but I hadn't touched a drop of alcohol in 2 years. Daisy didn't allow it. 2 years ago, to help her land the toughest real estate deal of her career, I went behind her back and drank with the client until I ended up in the hospital with a bleeding ulcer. Daisy, who was always so graceful and composed, absolutely lost it. After that, a new company policy banned drinking at business functions. She was brilliant, sharp, elegant, and sophisticated. All the guys at the office had a thing for her, myself included. But everyone knew Daisy had a first love living abroad. They'd been broken up for years, but she was still waiting for him. I always assumed my one-sided crush would eventually fade into nothing. I never imagined I'd actually get a chance with her. Daisy came to see me every day while I was in the hospital. She'd stay for exactly 2 hours each time. She rarely spoke, just sat there working on her laptop. I tried to convince her to go back to the office, but she'd just say, "My assistant is here." I'd be too inefficient at the office. I put on a pained expression. "Boss, I'm a patient." She paused, then let out a soft laugh. "Wow, passive-aggressive much. Are you accusing me of exploiting a sick employee?" Working for Daisy, I'd met my fair share of trust fund kids and heirs, but none had her effortless, magnetic confidence, the kind that made me willing to fall completely under her spell. She didn't know I'd already been in love with her for 4 years. I was a sophomore in college when she came back to our alma mater as a distinguished alumna to give a speech. The woman on that stage was absolutely captivating. Every gesture she made was the definition of charming. After her speech, I worked up the courage to go up and hand her my resume. She didn't dismiss me for my lack of experience. Instead, she encouraged me to be brave and give it a shot. With just those few words, I threw myself into her orbit without a second thought. I started as a junior assistant in the secretarial pool, but after passing round after round of screening, I finally became her right-hand man. But she didn't remember me. Half the drinks on the table were gone, but I was nearing my limit. The client, Mr. Lin, wouldn't give up. "Leo, everyone says you're Daisy's favorite assistant. Just give her a call and she'll be here. Why be so stubborn?" I ignored him and asked, "If I finish these, you'll sign the contract?" "I'm a man of my word." "Fine." I fought down the churning in my stomach and kept drinking. Mr. Lin had one thing wrong. I was only formerly her favorite. After I was discharged from the hospital that time, Daisy had a mountain of work piled up, so she had me working overtime with her for a solid week. A week later, she got sick. I went to her apartment with a stack of documents and knocked, only to find out she was running a high fever and had no medicine in the house. I put down the files and turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm, looking weak. "I haven't eaten yet." So I bought medicine and got her some food. Being sick seemed to strip away Daisy's professional edge, revealing a softer, more relaxed side. Even though I tried my best to keep my composure, I couldn't control my racing heart. She came down with it hard and had to work from home. Since I lived way out in the suburbs, the daily commute was killing me. So when Daisy suggested I stay at her place temporarily, I didn't refuse. I ended up staying for the better part of a month. She never mentioned me moving out, and I couldn't bring myself to leave. The day that fragile peace was shattered, Daisy came home a little drunk. I sat her down on the sofa while I went to the kitchen to make her something to sober her up. "Leo." I turned my head. Daisy was standing right behind me, her face flushed, her ears a little red. I turned back to the stove. It'll be a few more minutes. Go sit down. Leo, she said again, stepping closer. I realized something was off. I turned back in surprise and finally sighed. How much did you have to drink? She shook her head. I didn't drink. After she finished the soup, I went to run a bath for her. I heard footsteps behind me, and before I could turn, a warm chest pressed against my back. I spun around in a panic, met Daisy's dark, intense eyes, and instinctively tried to run. She was faster, shutting the bathroom door. The small space was thick with a growing intimacy. A selfish part of me screamed that this was the perfect chance to get closer to her. But what about after tonight? Knowing Daisy's personality, we probably wouldn't even be able to work together anymore. Without another word, Daisy kissed me. I grabbed her sleeve, hearing the thunder of my own heartbeat. I struggled for only a moment before closing my eyes in surrender. In my book, if you sleep with me, it means something. You're no exception. At 26, I was finally with the woman I had loved for years. We weren't like other couples. During work hours, it was strictly business. But no matter how busy she was, she would religiously set aside one day a week to spend with me. We did everything couples do. She was rich, beautiful, and charismatic, and she gave me all the emotional support I could ask for. Those 2 years were some of the happiest of my life. I was greedy enough to imagine spending the rest of my life with her just like that. But then, on a perfectly ordinary day, I couldn't get in touch with Daisy at all. Someone from the administrative department quietly told me her first love was back. To this day, I can still remember the look my coworker gave me. Pity mixed with a knowing sadness. It was snowing the day I decided to quit. Coming from Florida, I've always had a special feeling about snow. Unlike the damp, biting cold of a Florida winter, here it was a winter wonderland outside, but warm as spring indoors. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching people build snowmen with a pang of envy. I hadn't built a snowman since becoming Daisy's assistant. Snow meant the holidays were coming, which meant work was too chaotic to even think about it. Just as I was lamenting missing out on this snowfall, Daisy suddenly appeared behind me. Want to build a snowman? I glanced at the mountain of files behind her and shook my head. Lying. But she took my hand and led me outside. We have a 1-hour break. That should be enough time. She took a lot of pictures of me. I asked for a picture together, but she said no, claiming she didn't like having her picture taken. It wasn't until that night that I accidentally found a thick photo album in her drawer. Every single picture was of the two of them, Daisy and Ethan. The Daisy in the photos was younger than she was now. She posed intimately with Ethan, striking all sorts of playful poses without a hint of impatience on her face. So, my girlfriend didn't dislike taking pictures. She just disliked taking them with me. I think if I had a little less professional restraint, or if she had spoiled me just a little bit more, I would have been bold enough to confront her with that album and demand an explanation. But I didn't. I just quietly put the album back where I found it and pretended I'd never seen it. When I got home that night, I was picking out a few good photos of myself to post on my social feed when I saw a post from Daisy's best friend. I knew Daisy was the only one who'd do something as silly as building a snowman with Ethan. Below it was a photo of Daisy and Ethan hugging in front of a snowman. I realized then that after Daisy left me, she'd gone straight to find Ethan. They were smiling so effortlessly for the camera. A power couple, a perfect match. After 2 years together, for the first time, I thought about leaving her. When did I finally make the decision to leave? It was probably the day Ethan came to the office. Daisy, who always put work first, canceled all her appointments just to have lunch with him. I found a spot in a corner of the employee cafeteria with my tray. I had just sat down when I heard my coworkers behind me talking about Ethan. Mr. Ito is still so handsome. I heard he's back to marry Daisy. What's gonna happen to Leo? Are you stupid? She was just playing around with Leo. Now that her real fiancé is back, she'll obviously get rid of him. Think about it. Since Leo got with her, have they ever not eaten lunch together? The day Mr. Ito shows up, she ditches him. Isn't it obvious? She'll keep it down, Leo's right there. It's the truth. Me not saying it doesn't change the fact that he's about to get dumped. I lost my appetite. When I got back to the office, Daisy wasn't there. I opened my laptop, spent half an hour writing my resignation letter, and placed it on her desk. When only one glass of liquor was left, someone shouted, "Daisy's here." The voice snapped me out of my memories. Everyone looked toward the door, but there was no sign of her. The client, Mr. Lin, was one of Daisy's biggest rivals. He threatened me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Leo, if Daisy doesn't show up today, you're not walking out of this room. You're making that call whether you want to or not." I fought back a wave of dizziness and pulled out a contract. "This is a legitimate contract with Zhou Corp. Mr. Lin, I've already resigned from Daisy's company." Mr. Lin squinted at the contract, then suddenly laughed. "Daisy actually let you go? Leo, I need a capable assistant just like you. Why don't you come work for me? Anything she can give you, I can give you too." I wasn't interested. What Daisy gave me, no one else could. Seeing my silence, Mr. Lin turned nasty. "You really think you're such a hot commodity? If it wasn't for getting under Daisy's skin, why would I waste my time on a little assistant like you? You think working for her for a couple of years means you can marry into the elite? Let me tell you, you'll never get through the gates of her family. Now that the guy from the Ito family is back, there's no way she'll keep messing around with you. Leo, you're a smart guy. You should know which choice to make." I lowered my eyes, silent. After all this time with Daisy, how could I not understand the stakes? But people, we always have to cling to some unrealistic hope to find the courage to keep going. I curved my lips into a slight smile. "Mr. Lin, instead of threatening me to make Daisy appear, you'd be better off going directly to Mr. Ito. You said it yourself, he's the one who's going to be her husband." Mr. Lin exploded in a rage, grabbing my hair and trying to force more alcohol down my throat. Suddenly, someone yelled, "Daisy!" The next second, 2 bodyguards pulled Mr. Lin away. Daisy moved slowly through the crowd toward me. Her voice was so cold it betrayed no emotion. "Mr. Lin, treating my boyfriend like this, are you declaring all-out war with my family?" Daisy was really here. She wanted to take me away, and no one could stop her. In the cramped back seat of the car, she gave me a sobriety pill, her movements gentle as she brushed the hair from my forehead. In the light from the passing street lamps, I could see the sharp, tense lines of her beautiful face. After being with her day in and day out for 3 years, I knew this was the prelude to her losing her temper. I instinctively reached for the door handle to get out, but an arm snaked out and pulled me back. As I struggled, I met her eyes, which were as dark and deep as an ancient pool. I don't know where I found the courage, but I glared at her fiercely. She looked slightly taken aback, then a smile played on her lips. That made me even angrier. "Let go of me. You wouldn't even call me. Are you really that hurt?" Her voice was tender and weary, like a siren's song. I turned my face away. "I'm not hurt." As a boss, she treated her employees well, rewarding them fairly. As a boyfriend, she was incredibly generous, giving me anything I wanted. She never let me feel slighted. "If you're not hurt, then unblock me." I froze, slowly remembering that on the day I left, I had blocked and deleted her from everything. I'd been so determined then, vowing never to add her back. If I unblocked her now, what would all my mental preparation over the past few weeks have been for? The atmosphere in the cramped car became terrifyingly silent. I don't know how long the silence lasted, but suddenly, I heard her say, "Leo, will you marry me?" For a second, I thought I'd misheard, but the cool touch of metal on my finger told me I hadn't. I lifted my hand. A platinum ring now sat on my middle finger. At 22, it was love at first sight with Daisy. At 25, after passing round after round of interviews, I became her right-hand man. At 26, my dream came true and we got together. At 28, I had to use every ounce of strength I had to leave her, and now she was proposing. "Why?" I asked. Daisy held my hand, her delicate thumb tracing patterns on my palm. "It's not what people are saying about Ethan and me. He's the son of a family friend. We dated for a little while, realized we weren't a good match, and broke up. He's been abroad for years and isn't familiar with the business climate here now that he's back. So his father asked me to show him the ropes. Leo, his father has helped me a lot. I couldn't refuse his request. Her tone was so sincere, so earnest. Anyone would have believed her without a second thought. My head told me I should say no, but every cell in my body was screaming at me to give us one more chance. So, under her hopeful gaze, I nodded. We never made it to City Hall. Just as we arrived, Daisy took a call. She looked at me apologetically. It's our family friend's 60th birthday today. If we get married now, we'll be too late for the party. She squeezed my hand. I'm already yours. It's not like I can run away. She promised me we'd postpone it for one night and go first thing in the morning. Daisy always knew how to talk me around, and after a while I started trying to convince myself too. I only quit my job, we haven't broken up. She proposed, I accepted. It's perfectly normal. It's only half a day's delay. I can wait. When we got to the Ito family's home, Daisy was immediately called away. She told me to find a place to sit and wait for her. Don't worry, I'll be right back. After a while, a group of socialites came over. They chattered among themselves as if I wasn't there. I heard Daisy has a boyfriend. Do you guys think Ethan will still get to have his engagement with her? Engagement? What engagement? You haven't heard? This is supposed to be a birthday party. But it's really an engagement party. No way. I just saw Daisy come in with that male assistant of hers. I heard they're pretty serious. I heard Daisy only got with him to lure Ethan back. Besides, when Ethan broke up with her, he was just throwing a tantrum. Suddenly, one of them pointed toward the dance floor and gasped, "Look over there. I told you. The first dance tonight was always going to be for Ethan and Daisy. Come on, let's go watch." I followed their gaze and saw a picture-perfect couple dancing gracefully in the center of the floor. They moved back and forth, gazing deeply into each other's eyes, so in sync that there was no room for anyone else. I never knew Daisy could dance so well. Every step, every glance, every smile was perfectly coordinated. All around me, I heard envious praise and speculation about their marriage. I used to be Daisy's top assistant. I knew her entire schedule every single day. Now, I could only wait passively for the truth, just like everyone else. The dance ended to thunderous applause. Clapped too. Daisy finally noticed me, and her expression changed slightly when she looked over. I gave her a small smile. She hesitated, about to walk in my direction, but Ethan grabbed her hand. They whispered something to each other, and I saw Daisy make a call me gesture in my direction before leaving with Ethan. I had already unblocked her. A message came through almost immediately. Something came up. I'll be back soon. I went back to the spot where I'd first waited for her. I waited and waited, but she never came back. As the party was ending, I finally got news. I was told she and Ethan were engaged. In the hour I had been waiting for her, they had completed their engagement ceremony. The internet was flooded with news of their engagement. Not long after the dance, photos of them had already been circulated. Everyone was calling them a match made in heaven, a perfect pair. On top of that, there were official statements from both the Brooke and Ito families. All signs pointed to it. Daisy and Ethan's marriage was a done deal. I stared at their photo together until my eyes burned before I finally closed the news page. The Ito family's butler found me and said he was to drive me home. It's on Ms. Brooke's orders. I shook my head, took off the ring, and handed it to the butler. Please give this back to Daisy. With that, I turned and walked away. As soon as I got home, I started packing. I took the earliest flight to a city where I knew no one. Daisy didn't know that I had recently received a graduate school acceptance letter. Back when I was a sophomore, my plan had been to go to grad school right after graduation. Then I met Daisy, and on a whim, I gave her my resume. The grad school plan was put on hold. Daisy knew I was applying this time. She encouraged me to try and even helped me find a lot of research materials. Countless late nights, she'd be handling work while I sat beside her, tackling difficult problems. It all felt so vivid, but everything had changed. After all this time, I was back at the starting point of when I first met her. This time, I didn't want to leave myself with any regrets. Getting into the program went smoothly. My professors and classmates were great. My days were a whirlwind of running between the lab and my dorm. The busy schedule created the illusion that nothing had ever happened. At school, I ran into Ivy, a girl from my hometown who was a year ahead of me. She had stayed to work at the university after getting her master's. We often ran into each other in the lab, and over time we got to know each other. One day, we were having a meal together when Ivy asked me, "I remember you said you were going to apply for grad school back then. I was so disappointed when I heard you didn't end up taking the exams." I smiled. I came across a great job opportunity and wanted to seize the chance to learn a few things. She laughed. "So, have you returned triumphant from your studies?" I nodded. In 6 years, I'd spent 3 trying to get close to Daisy and 3 by her side. What I learned will serve me for a long time. You must have had a great boss then. Yeah, the boss was good. Perhaps because of the topic, I thought of Daisy. It had been almost a month since we broke up. She hadn't looked for me, and I hadn't followed any news about her. I thought Daisy and I would never see each other again. But that day, as Ivy was walking me back to my dorm, I saw Daisy at the entrance. She was dressed in a chic, custom-tailored suit, a striking figure in the crowd, making guys stop and stare. Seeing me walking with Ivy, Daisy confidently stepped forward to greet her.
Hello, I'm Daisy Brooke.
Ivy was slightly surprised. "Ivy Lynn, I know who you are, Daisy." Daisy smiled at me, but her words were for Ivy. "Leo's mentioned you so many times over the years. He said you were a huge help to him in college." Ivy was smart. She picked up on the subtext. After a few pleasantries, she made an excuse and left. "Leo," Daisy said, taking a step forward. I took a step back. She paused, her voice laced with hurt. "I waited for you for 2 hours. I remained unmoved. Ms. Brooke, we've already broken up." She slowly reached for my hand. "Are you angry?" My whole body tensed and I took 2 quick steps back. "Ms. Brooke, please have some self-respect." Her expression finally hardened, her gaze deep and scrutinizing. After a moment, she said, "That day, Ethan's father had a sudden health crisis. He was worried about Ethan, so I cut her off. Whatever happened that day, we both made our choices, didn't we? You chose him. I gave up on you. So, Daisy, don't come looking for me anymore. And let's not see each other again." Right after we broke up, I was bitter. I hated her. I'd occasionally dream of her, then wake with a start and cry into my pillow until dawn. But they say no one is so indispensable that you can't live without them. The hardest trials eventually pass. I buried myself in the lab. My world became nothing but experimental data. I didn't have the mental space to think about anything else. So, seeing her again, I could finally control my emotions. I truly did love her once. And now I truly wanted to let her go. After that day, I didn't see Daisy again. When winter break arrived, Ivy asked if I wanted to travel home with her, and I agreed. On the way, she started to say something several times, then finally worked up the courage to ask, "Leo, you and Daisy, she was your boss, right?" I didn't hide it. Yes, she was. So you too. We were together for a couple of years. We've been broken up for half a year now. Ivy breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay, good. HM?" She smiled lightly. "Then I can pursue you with a clear conscience." Ivy's house wasn't far from mine. She offered to walk me home, but I declined. Just as I reached my apartment building, I saw a familiar car parked by the curb. The license plate was a number I knew by heart. I ignored the car and walked toward the building entrance, but someone grabbed my suitcase. Daisy's delicate features looked weary. She must have driven here by herself. Over 500 miles from New York to my hometown. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse. "Can we talk?" "We have nothing to talk about." "Leo, Her words were cut off by another voice. It was my mom. I had called her when I got close to the neighborhood, and she'd come down to meet me. She hadn't expected to walk into this scene. My mom is a sucker for a pretty face. When she learned Daisy was my former boss, she welcomed her into our home with a huge smile. She had made dumplings and insisted Daisy had to try her cooking. I couldn't stop her, so I just let it happen. My dad wasn't home, and once my mom went into the kitchen, it was just Daisy and me in the living room. I poured her a glass of water. Ms. Brooke, after you finish these dumplings, I hope we can be done with each other for good. She reached for my hand, and I instinctively pulled away. Daisy's eyes filled with hurt. I broke off the engagement with Ethan. I've done a lot of thinking during this time, and I've realized the person I want to marry is you. I gave a slight nod. But Daisy, I don't want to wait for you anymore. Her expression completely crumbled. The color drained from her beautifully sculpted face. I stood up. Let's just part on good terms. With that, I went into the kitchen to help my mom. My mom quietly asked me if Daisy was pursuing me. I told her there was no chance. The class difference was too great, it would never work. My mom said regretfully, "Still, I'd rather my son find someone who's right for him. I'm so grateful for my parents. They raised me well and are so understanding." After we ate, my mom told me to walk Daisy out. Once we were outside the building, I showed no intention of walking any further. She didn't move either, just stood there. Leo, if I hadn't left you alone at the Itos that day, would we have ended up here? If we had gotten married that day, would you not have been so cruel as to leave me? I looked at her. You're the one who left me first. Then I remembered something. The day Ethan came back, I couldn't reach her at all. I waited in her office late into the night, not leaving until midnight. That was my 28th birthday. The day before, she had promised to throw me a huge, unforgettable birthday party. But on my birthday, I couldn't get a hold of her no matter what I tried. Later, I found out she'd gone to the airport to pick up Ethan and had even thrown him a lavish welcome home party. She had already made her choice back then. A cold front moved south, and the temperature dropped to freezing overnight. It was damp and cold. I was bundled up in a thick coat when my mom suddenly said, "Leo, come look. Isn't that your boss?" I went to the window and looked down. The familiar car was parked on the street outside our complex. Daisy, dressed in thin clothing, was walking toward the car holding a hot drink. My dad came over for a look. "That car's been parked there for 2 days. Is that woman Leo's boss?" "Ex-boss. He already quit," I corrected. My dad is a sly old fox, he could tell something was up. Under his questioning, I confessed everything about Daisy and me, though I left out most of the details. My dad said, "Good son. A family like that isn't right for a family like ours. Go talk to her. Tell her to leave. No matter what, she came all this way for you. If something were to happen to her, we couldn't handle the consequences." I put on my down jacket and walked over to Daisy's car. When she got out, a little flash of delight appeared on her beautiful face. But in the next second, the color drained from her face, and her rosy lips pressed into a thin line. Because I said, "You're starting to affect my life. Go home, Daisy. Please don't cause any more trouble for me. Is there really no chance for us?" Her voice trembled in the cold wind. I pointed to a red Ferrari about 30 feet away. "See that? The day you got here, he followed you. You can ignore him, but I can't. If you're determined to marry someone who loves you, Ethan is your best bet." Daisy, always so elegant, clenched her fists and, for the first time, lost her temper with me. "Leo, we were together for 3 years. You say you don't want me anymore. Just like that? What do you take me for?" I pulled the hood of my jacket tighter. "Before we were together, you were my goal. When we were together, you were my love. Now that I don't love you anymore, you're just my ex-boss." Her lips curled upward slightly. "I don't want to be just your boss." I ignored her and waved at the flashy Ferrari behind her. A moment later, Ethan got out of the car and strode over. He looked at me warily, his gaze carrying an undercurrent of scrutiny. I didn't care. I turned and started walking away. "It's not like New York here," I said over my shoulder. "There's no central heating. But if you two insist on suffering for no reason, I can't stop you." I crawled back into bed as soon as I got home. The newly pulled up covers were as cold as my heart. That night, I started running a fever. It took 3 full days for my temperature to come down. The sun finally came out. I opened the curtains, the chill dissipated, and I felt alive again. My mom told me that on the first day of my fever, the 2 cars downstairs had left and never came back. After a couple more days at home, Ivy invited me out. When she heard I had been sick, she actually showed up with a gift. My parents swarmed her, grilling her like they were running a background check, and seemed quite pleased with her. After Ivy left, my parents asked for my opinion. I said, I don't love her, but I don't dislike her. We can try dating and see how it goes. At 28, you're past the age where love is everything. If you meet someone suitable, marriage isn't out of the question. Ivy was thrilled when she found out. She promised me, I'm not good with words. I can't say sweet things, but I promise I'll never let you feel wronged. The day before I left to go back to school, my mom handed me a small velvet box. Inside was the platinum ring. She said, I found it in the sofa cushions. Your dad told me not to give it to you, but I think this is something you need to resolve yourself. I found a shipping center, mailed the ring to Daisy, and once again blocked and deleted all of her contact information. The new semester began. I was still buried in the lab every day, with an occasional dinner with Ivy. Even though we were a couple, she knew her boundaries and never made me feel uncomfortable. These peaceful days didn't last long before Daisy shattered them again. The university had established a new scholarship for outstanding full-time graduate students. I won the second-place prize. On the day of the award ceremony, I saw Daisy at the school. The university administration respectfully welcomed her to the stage, and amid the buzzing crowd, I learned that this scholarship was sponsored by her. Across the crowd, I could feel Daisy's gaze on me, a gentle smile on her lips, as warm as ever. I lowered my eyes, went on stage to accept my award, and we had no interaction. However, after the ceremony, my academic advisor asked me to give Daisy a tour of the campus. I was about to refuse when Ivy appeared out of nowhere. She said to the advisor, Leo and I can show Ms. Brooke around together. And so we set off. As we walked, I fell behind the two of them. Ivy was diligently playing the part of a tour guide, but Daisy seemed uninterested and suggested we all go out to eat. At the restaurant, Ivy was called away by a phone call. She looked at me hesitantly. In an instant, I understood. I took her hand and said to Daisy, Sorry, Ms. Brooke, I have to leave with my girlfriend. She worries if I'm not with her. Daisy was understanding. It's on my way. Let me give you two a ride. Ivy didn't want to, but it was nearly impossible to get a cab here, so she had to give in. When we got in the car, I deliberately sat in the front passenger seat, leaving Ivy and Daisy in the back. Suddenly, Daisy pulled a stuffed animal out from under the seat and handed it to me. You always liked to hold this when you slept in the car. You can take it with you. I took it silently, planning to find a trash can to throw it in after we got out. Daisy's voice continued from the back. Zhang, what about the things I asked you to gather last time? The driver took a small, elegant bag from the glove compartment and handed it to me. Mr. G, these are the things you left in the car. Can you check if anything is missing? Honestly, Daisy's little ploy was easy to see through. But it was exactly these kinds of ploys that could plant a seed in someone's mind, a seed that would then take root and sprout. For example, in Ivy. Without even turning around, I could hear the creak of her knuckles as she clenched her fists. The car fell into a dead silence. The silence lasted until we got out. Then, Ivy suddenly said, leaving her to be with me, you must feel so wronged, right? Your watch is worth almost half my yearly salary. I frowned. I bought this watch myself. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Daisy never short-changed her staff. In the 3 years I worked for her, my salary steadily increased, reaching 6 figures at its peak. I could afford a watch that cost a few $1,000s on my own. Ivy sneered. Buying it with the money she gave you is the same as her giving it to you. I looked at the person in front of me, and a wave of exhaustion washed over me, spreading through my limbs. Ivy, if this bothers you, let's just call it quits. Her face darkened. You regret being with me? Now she just has to snap her fingers, and you can't wait to run back to her. Can you? I should have known. You were never over her. You only got with me to make her angry. I slapped Ivy across the face with all my strength. I couldn't stop my body from trembling as I glared at her in fury. Ivy, you don't have to like me, but you don't get to slander me. We're done. After breaking up with Ivy, I threw myself completely into my studies. She tried to find me a few times, but I ignored her. She even found my roommate, asking him to pass along gifts and persuade me to get back together with her. Ivy is a really responsible person, he told me. If you let her go, you might not get another chance. I told my roommate that even though I was getting older, I wasn't going to settle for someone for the rest of my life just because of my age. He didn't try to persuade me again. The day my study abroad application was approved, Ivy came to find me. Congratulations. She handed me a box. This is a gift for you. I didn't take it. The knuckles of the hand holding the gift box turned white. Is it because of me that you're applying to go abroad? I shook my head. This was part of my career plan back in college. It was a few years late, but as long as you work hard, it's never too late to start. Can I see you off then? There's no need. Ivy came to the airport to see me off anyway. Her eyes were red, and she looked like she wanted to say something, but in the end, she said nothing at all. Once I was on the plane, I found the gift she tried to give me a few days ago tucked into my bag. It was a pair of cufflinks. I put them away and threw them in the trash after I landed. The new university had a strong academic atmosphere, and the students around me were all great. In this unfamiliar environment, I finally let myself relax completely. I picked up my old photography hobby. When I wasn't busy with school, I'd wander around, taking pictures and uploading them to my personal video account. Life fell into a steady, orderly rhythm. I just never expected to hear news of Daisy in a foreign country. In a group chat for international students, a classmate asked, "Does anyone know Daisy Brooke? She's one of the top young entrepreneurs in our country. She's coming here to expand into the overseas market. Our department senior was just hired by her for a huge salary. If any of you want to work for her company, I can give you a referral." He posted a picture of Daisy in the group, and a bunch of guys immediately replied, wanting in. A friend messaged me privately. "Leo, are you signing up?" I just asked my friends back home, and they all say Daisy treats her assistants incredibly well, even running interference for them at drinking parties. Having such a gentle and beautiful boss, you definitely learn a lot from her, right? I'm so jealous of her assistant. There was no question about Daisy's capabilities, and she really did treat her subordinates well. But I wanted nothing more to do with her. I still have a few experiments to finish, so I'll pass. He was disappointed. With your skills, I'm sure you could get hired. You might even become her personal assistant. I saw Daisy anyway. The tenant in the apartment next to mine moved out, and the next day a new one moved in. That morning, I pushed open my door and saw Daisy in athletic wear, unlocking the door next to mine. She had clearly just returned from a run. I was in a hurry, so I rushed off without greeting her. When I came back from class that evening, I ran into Daisy at the door again. It was less of a coincidence and more like she was waiting for me. She was holding a bag of groceries, looking at me pitifully. I can't get used to the food here and I don't know how to cook. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I took a deep breath. Daisy, go home. There's really no chance for us. She replied softly, I know. We're just neighbors now. Once the company here is stable, I'll go back. This place was close to the university and not expensive, but it was definitely not Daisy's first choice. She should have been living in a luxury apartment downtown with friends on the floors above and below, and a personal chef who cooked Chinese food. Not crammed into a small apartment building in a chaotic neighborhood. I didn't call out her lie. I took the bag from her hands, went into my apartment, and shut the door, leaving her outside. An hour later, I knocked on her door with a container of freshly cooked food. She took the food and looked at me cautiously. "Do you want to eat some with me?" "No thanks. I already ate." Daisy was extremely busy. I didn't see her for several days. As soon as I found a new place, I moved out immediately. The moving process was a bit loud and must have disturbed her. She came out of her apartment, her face showing a rare, shocked expression. I handed her a cookbook. "If you want to eat Chinese food, you can follow the recipes in here. If that doesn't work, just go home." Daisy's gaze was lowered. I couldn't read her expression. As the car drove away, I saw her in the rearview mirror. She stood by the roadside for a long, long time, until the car turned a corner and she was out of sight. I moved into a shared apartment with 2 other international students. Daisy didn't follow me this time. After all, this place was even worse than the last one. She was a pampered princess. No matter how much she liked someone, she wasn't going to subject herself to living in a place with zero privacy for a relationship with no future. I went to school, did my experiments, and occasionally hung out with classmates. On one of these outings, I met a fellow photography enthusiast. Coincidentally, she had gone to the same university as me. A bright, cheerful girl. But she told me she was 2 years older than me. After I got to know Emily, she often invited me out to shoot photos. I wasn't good at being in pictures, so she taught me about composition. I was a slow learner, but she never tired of explaining the techniques to me. As we spent more time together, we started traveling on our holidays. I told her my dream was to travel the world. She laughed. What a coincidence. My dream is to capture all the world's beauty in my camera lens. The days passed, spring turned to winter, and 3 years flew by in a flash. Emily and I were together. She was the one who brought it up. I think we get along really well. Want to try dating? Being with her was comfortable. I wasn't opposed to taking things further. So we gave it a try, and surprisingly, we were compatible in every way. After returning to our home country, we met each other's parents. Both sides were very happy, so we started planning the wedding. On our wedding night, Emily got drunk. I turned to look at her, and her ears were bright red. So red it made you want to tease her. Leo, she called again, her voice full of dependence and affection. I brought a glass of water over to her and leaned in close. You only had 2 glasses. How are you this drunk? She tugged on my sleeve, cooing, don't be mad. I won't drink anymore. Please don't be mad. Okay? I deliberately put on a stern voice. Drink this, then go take a shower and go to bed. Okay. She drank the water and followed me very obediently into the bathroom. As she wrapped her arms around me, I heard her voice, clear and distinct. It's been 10 years, Leo. I'm finally married to you. Before I had time to process that, my senses were overwhelmed, and I eventually fell into a deep sleep. I had a dream. I dreamed of the day I first met Daisy. I was lost and couldn't find the lecture hall. In a panic, I grabbed the arm of a random person. Excuse me, do you know where the lecture by Daisy Brooke is? A beautiful girl looked up, and her face merged with Emily's. I do, she said, but you have to be my model for a picture first. Then I'll take you. I agreed. When I graduated, I received a photograph in the mail. Under a cherry blossom tree, my smile was bright and brilliant. On the back of the photo was a contact number and 2 words. Emily Sterling. Daisy was 35. At first, her family pushed her to marry Ethan. Eventually, they relaxed their conditions to the point where as long as she was willing to get married, any man would do. But she no longer had any desire to marry. Her company grew larger and larger, and her personality became more paranoid and isolated. In public, she was the decisive, brilliant CEO. In private, she was addicted to social media. For no other reason than Leo. Leo had started a social media account where he posted his photography daily. Occasionally, he would appear in them, and on a good day, you could hear his voice in a video. Then one day, he stopped updating. During those days, everyone at the company walked on eggshells. Their nerves stretched taut, afraid that one wrong move would set off the bombshell that was Daisy. Like a stalker, she obsessively scrolled through Leo's account, trying to find any clue. Finally, in the comments section, she discovered an account with 1 million followers that frequently interacted with Leo. The account belonged to Emily. In her photography, any video that featured a person had Leo as the male lead. In her lens, Leo was incredibly vibrant, a side of him Daisy had never seen. The comments were full of praise for Emily, calling her a genius for making Leo look so good. Sexy, handsome, fresh, gentle. But Daisy thought it was because Leo was so handsome that Emily could capture such images. As if she'd found a new spiritual crutch, she spent her days lingering on Emily's account. It was a perfectly ordinary day. Daisy opened Emily's account as usual, only to be hit with a bombshell. Emily and Leo were getting married. Daisy knew Leo was dating someone. But she had clung to the foolish hope that after his experiences with her and Ivy, he wouldn't believe in love anymore. She was wrong. When Ethan heard Daisy was going to Leo's wedding, he showed up with his wife to mock her. He's already moved on. You're the only one who hasn't. Daisy, you were the one who was indecisive and drove him away. Who are you putting on this devoted act for now? You just can't stand losing, can you? So what? He doesn't want you. Leo doesn't want you anymore. For 3 years, Ethan had been humiliated by her countless times. Finally realizing Daisy would never marry him, he had turned around, accepted an arranged marriage, and gotten married in a flash. Daisy went to Leo's wedding anyway. She came uninvited, and Emily herself greeted her. At the wedding, she saw Ivy. They were seated at the alumni table right next to each other. Ivy saw Daisy. Neither of them said a word. Just before the groom was about to make his entrance, they both tacitly left the wedding hall. Ivy asked Daisy, "Do you regret it?" Daisy was silent. Ivy let out a cold laugh. "You don't look like the type to have regrets. I used to feel inferior, afraid you'd steal him back. Seeing you end up like this, I can finally rest easy." Before leaving, Ivy said to her, "Daisy, he should have been yours. You're the one who pushed him away with your own hands. Don't bother him anymore. He's very happy now." That day, Daisy fled in disgrace. She would still open Emily's video account in the dead of night. But Leo's appearances became less and less frequent. And then, for a long time, he didn't appear at all. Daisy knew she should let go, but she didn't know how. Until one day, a small baby appeared in Emily's video. It was Leo and Emily's child. Emily had made a long video. The video began with a single line of text: "Our 10 years." The first photo was of Leo standing under a cherry blossom tree, his smile young and innocent. Then another line of text: "A decade apart, but I finally found you." Next came a montage of photos: Alaska, Rome, Santorini, Iceland, the Pacific Coast Highway, the Great Plains of Montana. They embraced in the glow of a sunset, made wishes under the northern lights, rode horses across the grasslands. Watching it to the end, Daisy's eyes began to sting. These were all things she could have easily given him, yet she hadn't done a single one of them with him. The comment section was a flood of congratulations. She wanted to add a blessing of her own, but she typed and deleted, and in the end, couldn't write a single word. From that day on, Daisy deleted her social media accounts and never logged on again.